Both microphones are now on and recording.
Hello. Welcome back to the Pit.
Let's just start
that again. Hello, and welcome back. Oh my god.
Oh, wow.
Oh my god.
Oh.
Like, third and final fucking time. Hello, and welcome back to the Pitlane Collective Podcast. Yous don't know, but that's the 10th time I've tried that. We had the race this week.
We did. What did you think of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix?
That's going to become a thing. I thought it was good. It didn't live up to me hype because going into the race, I was quite excited. Mainly because Max qualified in P15, and I thought it might make it a bit interesting.
No, it didn't, did it?
It didn't.
Qualifying was set up to be a bit of a... Yeah, it was going to be a bit of a blockbuster race. You know, you get the top guys, kind of Leclerc with his penalty, which, nice one, Ferrari. Second race, and you're replacing engine components already and taking grid penalties. But
Standard.
It's all good. Yeah, it was set up quite well. You got Leclerc down the order. You got Verstappen down the order. You got a couple of people who qualified really, really well.
Really well. But obviously the big story was Max.
Yeah.
And it was kind of everyone saying tongue-in-cheek a bit, like, let's see how fast he gets to the front, and let's see, by the end of lap one, he'd be first. I mean, that wasn't the case. But I think a lot of people were saying it, but I don't know if they necessarily believed it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was kind of like a begrudging, let's see how long it takes him to get into first. But I think, we've seen the power of that. That Red Bull's just insane.
Yeah. In fairness, we'll probably touch on this a little bit later on as well, but it's going to take a huge thing for them to not win every race at the moment.
I think the only thing that stops them is themselves.
Yeah.
Reliability issues, or even Max and Perez maybe having a fight.
Yeah. Because that car has got so much... at the end, they were pulling a second on everyone else.
Yeah.
That car's got so much pace that if they have an issue towards the start of a race, that they'll catch back up. Verstappen, it took him 25 laps to be up into second, which I think Alonso correctly predicted in qualifying or after qualifying.
It's not his first rodeo.
No, he knew what was happening. And it takes a bit of the anticipation out when they get through that quickly.
It does. It's probably not a great advert for the sport, is it? Because as he was ploughing his way through that field, not one car tried to stop him.
No.
They just pulled over.
It's pointless.
They just pulled over and let him through because there's just no fighting it.
Yeah.
That's probably not the best advert for the sport, really. But that's not Red Bull's fault. That's down to everyone else to catch up.
Yeah. So where did the race go wrong then? Because as we've said, it kind of felt like it was set up. I was hyped. I was excited going into the race.
For me, it went wrong when Perez got the lead back. So when Alonso pipped him at the start into turn one, I was like, ooh. But then it was kind of like, oh, no. That was just... and I think even Alonso probably knew that.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm not even sure he battled with Perez. He just let him past.
They had an interesting little fight, and then the next lap.
But I think it was probably a bit half-hearted, wasn't it?
It was inevitable.
He knew it was going to happen. He's not soft.
Yeah.
So I think the most interesting thing now in Formula One is the third step on the podium.
Yeah.
Because I think that is wide open.
Yeah.
I think there's a number of people who would get that. But who's your favourite for that? If you had to pick someone who was consistently getting third, would it be the Aston Martin, one of them?
I think right now it would probably either be Aston or Mercedes, because there's been a few kind of words that have come out of Mercedes saying they're not happy with where the car is. They're going to completely redo it, and yet they nearly took a podium if it wasn't for the crazy penalty fiasco, which we'll get onto in a bit. But they just jumped Ferrari again.
It was a mad thing for me because I was thinking about this post race when all the interviews and stuff were coming in. That obviously Mercedes weren't happy with the car that's been ongoing since the start of the season. Yet, is it as bad?
Well, they're
as they're
second.
making it out to be.
They're second in the constructors, but then they're nowhere near Red Bull. And I think that's their target. It's not a bad car in terms of, I think there's probably 6 or 7 teams on the grid that would quite like to have that car.
Exactly.
I think if you're driving around in a Williams or a McLaren, maybe you'd probably like to have a go in it. But I think for Mercedes, for their high standards, they want to be battling for the championship, and it's not. But I don't think it's an awful car. It's just in terms of Mercedes.
Yeah, I think
it's not great.
If maybe corner at a slightly different perspective. So it's maybe just forget about that. Yeah, obviously that is where they want to be, but that's where Williams want to be.
Yeah.
It is though, isn't it? It's like, but I think sometimes you got to put it into perspective. It's like, listen, they've made a car that's just so much better than ours.
Yeah.
It is the way it is. Let's fight for second in the constructors.
Yeah, but I don't think as a team, I think you want to be always aiming up. And that's I think that's why they're gonna. They're being super critical of the team. They're being super critical of their choices, and they're going to completely. Well, it sounds like they're going to completely revisit the design of the car, and they're going to come back with something a bit more different.
Yeah, Toto said massive changes to the car.
Yeah,
but as I said, like I don't know. I just think maybe they need to. Well, are they just going to moan about it all season?
Probably. Because anything other than being first is not good enough for Mercedes,
and that is 100% the right attitude to have. But don't you think maybe sometimes it's like that's not going to happen this season? Let's just really try and damage limitations and just get up as high as we possibly can, which they are doing. Like they finished P4 and P5, as you just said. They nearly had the podium if it wasn't for the penalty. Like I don't think that's when you're fighting against that Red Bull. I think that's the best you're going to hope for.
Yeah,
so I get what you're saying that for them it's a bad car, and it's arguably better than every other one on the grid except the Red Bull, maybe the Aston Martin.
They're definitely at the top of the rest, aren't they?
100%.
I think obviously for Mercedes that's not good enough, and they're going to push themselves super hard to try and make that other step.
Yeah.
I think for now they'll be happy that they've probably got that. That's a solid finish for them.
Because if they're putting in performances like this, and then in back they do have an upgrade package that makes the car 10 times better, these will be looked back on at the end of the season as a really good result.
Yeah.
Our car was really struggling, and yet
exactly
at that point we were still second in the constructors.
Yeah, they've maximised what they can at the moment, and fair play to them. They're second in the constructors, which is, considering what's been coming out of Mercedes in the past couple of weeks, that's impressive.
It's imploding, isn't it?
But to answer, I guess, your question about who's going to be second, it's you've got to remember that it is such a long season.
Yeah.
That things could change massively all the way through. Hopefully, someone catches Red Bull at some point.
It would be nice.
Yeah,
it would be nice if I don't necessarily think it's going to happen, because that is a monumental gap to close. However, it would be nice to see.
Yeah, it'd be good.
A team at least capable of trying.
Yeah, I think that was where the race fell apart for me. I was super hyped to see kind of the race start, and as soon as Alonso jumped in front of Perez, I got excited, and then immediately was like, yeah, but he'll be back past in like
as soon as he gets that rear wing open.
Yeah, and I think you could see Perez kind of, he had to go at Alonso sort of the first lap maybe. And then he kind of just sat back and waited for DRS a little bit, charged his battery, and then shot past.
Then that was it.
And Alonso was like, yeah, cool, fair enough. And then just tried to hang on. And that kind of takes this thing out of the race a little bit, because you're like, oh, well, Perez is going to win then, isn't he? Barring anything else, barring any mistake or anything. Verstappen kind of climbed his way back up through. Leclerc was climbing his way back through as well. Had a bit of a weird safety car. And then it all just kind of
It became a bit meh.
Yeah, it just settled. Like after the safety car, I don't really think anything happened. I mean, there was some good battles lower down.
I was literally just going to say the best racing was happening maybe 10th through 15th.
Yeah,
in that kind of zone. But we'll get onto that in a little bit.
Yeah, it just kind of ran out. They just fizzled out a bit. I think after that safety car, especially
when no one's trying to compete with the Red Bulls, and they're just letting them pass. It must be boring for them.
Yeah, but then I think even though the Red Bull is so quick that people are letting each other pass, but even after the safety car, there wasn't really any fighting between teams all the way down the top 10. Really, I mean, it was literally that last point.
I was going to, and the only other bit as well is when it came on the radio, didn't it? I think George's engineer said to him, "There's a possibility the Fernando's going to have a 5-second penalty to try and keep that gap." I think he was like 4.6 seconds adrift of him. So then he pushed on a bit to hold that. But yeah, that was about it really in terms of the top
10,
7,
basically
8,
top 9. I think that last points place, there was some good fighting going on there, and we'll go through that. But yeah, top 10 kind of static. So it was a shame. Let's hope for a better one next time. Let's hope that Australia brings some more kind
just
of
a bit
exciting.
more drama. It'd be nice.
Yeah, just something a bit more exciting than what we got. Some more battles, some more strategy.
I tell you, did have a cracking weekend. Alpine.
Yeah.
Alpine had a
Should we go through each of the teams? We've got like we've made a little list, haven't we, of each of the teams. Now feels like maybe a good time to just kind of quickly recap each driver's race and have a little look and see how they got on. Obviously, we've got to start with Red Bull really quick. Perez.
Yeah.
Solid.
To be honest, even when Max was making his way through the grid, I never really thought they would invoke team orders when he got to him, or if he could even catch him, to be fair, because I think he stayed about 4 or 5 seconds adrift of him anyway. And Sergio was keeping pace. Really well.
I have to say that kind of surprised me. I felt like I was watching Verstappen kind of closing up, and I was thinking, like, especially because Perez got through Alonso and then started pulling away a little bit. And then the safety car happened, and I was like, Verstappen's going to win this now. Yeah. This isn't going to be like, he's close enough. Maybe I was a bit harsh on Perez, and maybe I was doubting him a bit too much. I was quite impressed towards the end of the race. He kept that gap strong.
Did, yeah. And he was not happy, was he, about the fastest lap being snatched from him?
No, so I think it's a little odd because essentially it looks like Red Bull told both of them to drive to a delta. Yeah. And both of them went, nah.
Yeah. I mean, he seemed a bit, because he was asking him in the cool down room, like if he got the same instructions, and I think Max might have told a bit of a fib. Did they ask him, were they asking you to keep to a delta? And he was like, yeah, but then I asked what the fastest lap was. And he didn't really mention the fact that his engineer said, yeah, don't go for that.
Yeah,
We're not interested. He didn't,
I think if you're going to...
He left that out.
I think if you're going to try and challenge Max for a championship, you've got to have that kind of ruthless mentality of I'm going to go for it as well.
There was a lot of people giving him a bit of stick for it, but it's like... Why wouldn't he go for that? Yeah. If it's there on the table, why wouldn't he? And Perez...
He kept the lead of the championship because of it. It's a 2-point swing. I think Perez was trying to say that he was told, like Perez was told to keep to a delta, and he did, and Max didn't. But that's not actually what happened. Perez was allowed to push for the last 6 laps. Yeah. So he could have easily gone, do you know what, I'm going to try and set the fastest lap as well. I think I haven't actually seen the interview, but I believe he did go for it and he messed up the first sector on the last lap, and then Max got it. So Perez coming out saying essentially like, oh, you shouldn't have got the fastest lap because we were told to drive to a delta. Not quite the truth. No. But, I think something I was actually going to bring up, which we can jump into really quickly and we'll keep it brief, is I think the relationship between Max and Perez is going to be an interesting one to watch this year, because they are the only two that are fighting for a championship. And they're going to need to fight tooth and nail.
They are.
Well, Perez is, sorry.
I was going to say, for now, I think they are the only two in it, but there's really only one in it. Because I think most weekends, barring any problems, Max is probably going to start at the front of the grid. And then I know this sounds terrible.
You feel bad, don't you, writing them off? But yeah.
You feel bad writing them off, but I feel like team orders will be invoked if Max is ahead, but not if Perez is ahead, maybe. Especially if he... I don't know. I don't know. I do feel like Red Bull do favour Max.
Oh, yeah.
They
lot. Definitely do.
So it would have been interesting to see if it was the other way around, and if Perez at the start of P15 battled his way to the front, if they either got told to stay where they are or if they got told to yield or whatever. But yeah, it is a mad relationship they've got. And if it was... to be fair to Perez, I don't know how he maintains it, because
No.
I'm not sure. I love Max. I think he's great. I think he's a very selfish character, but I love him. But I think he would be an absolute nightmare
As a
to work
teammate,
with
yeah.
as a teammate.
I just think that like the relationship that they had, and you saw it kind of through the first season they had together, 2021, where it was Checo's a legend, and like he backed Hamilton up and all that sort of stuff, and it seemed like they had a great relationship there. Checo knew he was number 2, and he was helping Max fight for the championship. Last year things got a little weird, and there were a couple of moments. There was Monaco and
a couple of spicy
the fallout
moments
from that, and then there was Brazil, where Max refused to let Perez through, and it got a little weird. And I don't know. I think it's gonna get testier still. I think as the season goes on.
Solid word.
Because they're battling each other now. They know that they're battling each other.
Yeah, I mean, but again, like that's going to be the only good thing about this season.
Yeah.
But then it's like, how long does that last? Before Max starts to pull away.
If he gets a few wins,
and then there's really no battle up there. So yeah, I mean,
it's very reminiscent of you had sort of 2014, maybe 15, 16, where it was Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg, and basically them in the fastest car, and everyone else was just running around after them. And it does create this interesting situation where any kind of, because you're going to finish 1 and 2 pretty much, maybe podiums, maybe thirds occasionally, but you're pretty much guaranteed to finish 1 and 2. If someone has an issue, or if someone has a reliability problem, or if someone has a crash, they can make big swings in the championship. So it is something to keep an eye on. I think realistically all of us have probably written Perez off for a championship. And I mean, I feel bad saying it, but I think we've got to watch as the season goes. I don't think he'll hold a candle to Max through the whole season.
I don't think so either.
But he had a solid race yesterday. I feel harsh there, because we basically just said, like let's sum up his race.
When he does, everyone's surprised.
I know. If the roles were reversed, I don't think anyone would be surprised that the win happened. So
I think it's like, I don't know if people are surprised he won the race, or just surprised Max didn't. I don't know. But yeah, I know. If I was a betting man, I wouldn't be putting it on. It would be going on Max.
You'd be putting it on Max, who had a solid drive yesterday.
He couldn't have asked. Well, I know he wasn't happy.
Yeah,
but
he was furious, wasn't he? For second place
really
from 15.
Happy. Which I suppose is the mentality they've all probably got. Really, they all want to win a race, and second's first loser to them, isn't it? But yeah, keeping things in perspective, which I don't think he has, because he's quite immature sometimes, isn't he? From 15th to second. If you'd have given him that before the race, I imagine he probably would have said, yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think he probably had in his head that it would be amazing to win it. But
it would have been.
But, and so I guess he's fallen short there in his own mind.
Yeah.
But it's a trick. I think anyone else, you'd be over the moon to come from 15th to second. And that's a solid drive.
I think maybe the only chance he would have had of winning that is if Alonso stayed ahead of Perez for a bit longer, maybe, and held on back a bit more, had a bit more of a battle with him, but that was never going to happen. And
I wonder if it speaks to the mentality of the two Red Bull drivers, though, that like second is essentially his races with Perez now. It's not really with anyone else.
You've lost.
Yeah. Because I think that's what's going to go on now, and that's the thing where it's going to get a bit testier. Going forwards, because like, if it was maybe a grid from last year or even a couple of years ago, to fight from 15th up to second, you'd be made up. And maybe that's how they're, in Camp Red Bull, that's how they're seeing it now. It's you're expected to get 1 and 2, and everyone's just going to fight them.
So if you're
Perez
second,
and
you've
Verstappen
lost.
are going to fight for first. What
a position to be in for them, though.
Fair play to them.
The team, not so much the drivers, I guess.
They've done a great job with that car.
How long before people start asking some serious questions of that car?
It's probably already happening, I guess. I wonder how long before Red Bull clones start popping up, or people start copying different bits of bodywork or floor or whatever. It's going to happen.
Because a few drivers have said, haven't they, we've never seen a car that quick. It's just like... So you wonder behind the scenes if anyone's going, can we have a look at what's going on there?
Is this all legal?
I
think Yeah, I think they've built a monster, and it's insane how out of the gates it's that quick. Because I know that they're restricted on wind tunnel time. They had the penalty from the cost cap issue that they had and stuff, but it's a second a lot quicker than everything else. They could probably stop developing the car now and still be all right, unless people make huge jumps mid-season. So, I think they've done a solid job.
Yeah, we've probably give Red Bull a bit too much airtime there.
We might have done. We might have done.
Swiftly on. To Aston Martin.
Yeah, I was going to say, talk about big jumps. Aston, they're the race of two halves there, really, didn't they?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of Fernando Alonso he's won with that car, and he's just like so attuned with that car. Drove the absolute backside off it, and to get third, then fourth, then third was pretty special.
I've got to say, my personal favourite little thing from Alonso is how happy he is with the car, that he keeps reassuring people through the radio. I kind of want like a compilation of that for the end of the season.
What a car you've built me.
He's driving around and he comes over the radio and he's like, I love these tyres are great.
Yeah.
And then, in a few, I feel like he's just going to be popping up and going like, this green, just the colour of this car is my favourite colour.
Lawrence Stroll's got something on him?
No, I just think
be nice to us.
I think Alonso's probably spent about a decade driving around in awful cars.
Sheds on wheels.
Yeah, and then finally he's in something that can fight for podiums regularly. Yeah. And he's not shy of letting everyone know that he absolutely loves that car. Yeah. And long may it continue. It's great. I love it.
Just have to hope that he doesn't suffer the same reliability issues as his teammate.
Poor old Stroll, yeah. That's the sort of...
Was it brakes? Was it...
I don't know, actually. I
issue?
I believe it was an engine issue, but
okay.
I'm not sure, because they kind of just panicked and told him to stop straight away on track, didn't they?
I only assumed it was a brake, because I think they did mention it briefly, but then the fire marshals were like...
Yeah.
Squirting on us.
I've not seen anything come out.
Yeah.
But he was having a solid race up to that point, and I've got to give him a shout out. He made a beautiful overtake on Sainz on the opening lap.
Yeah, do you know what? We give him a lot of stick on this podcast. We probably should start respecting him a bit more.
Maybe we should, because he's doing well.
He's
fair play to him.
Yeah, very unlucky this weekend, but as I said, I don't think he'd be too disheartened by it, because there's nothing you can do. He'd be obviously disheartened that he wasn't battling up at the top. But I mean, it's not like he made a mistake. Or he did anything.
It was the car, wasn't it? Just let go. It's a shame. There was a funny thing where, because he parked up, and when you saw where he'd parked, he'd basically parked right at the escape point. Yeah. And then they called a safety car for it.
Yeah, that was a bit.
So have you seen the reason why they did that?
No.
Apparently, the FIA didn't know where the car was.
Oh, I did see this. The GPS told them it was still on the track.
Yeah. So they thought the car was still on the track.
They didn't think to turn on the telly.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of cameras and that sort of stuff, and the car's got cameras on it. Yeah. So I don't know why, but yeah, for some reason, that it was beautiful parking by Stroll.
He did all right.
Top job getting out of the way.
He did good.
But yeah, unfortunate. So it was kind of a race of two halves for Aston. And then we've got the penalty as well, which I think we'll talk about later on, just because that will take a bit of time anyway. Unless you want to cover it now. Should we cover it now?
We can cover it now, but we do have a few comments that have come in about the penalty. So I don't know if you want to do it all at once.
Yeah, I think we will. We'll save the penalty for sort of later on in the podcast.
Because that was a debacle.
But it was interesting.
It was very interesting,
And it meant that Alonso technically kind of made an overtake a few hours after the race.
Oh, yeah? Has that ever been done? I'm not sure.
So, yeah, Aston, race of two halves, but interested to see how Stroll, if he keeps going the way he was close to Alonso through qualifying, and
he
was looking pretty solid in the race. So, yeah, excited to see them. Next on the list, we've got Mercedes.
I think it was a solid weekend.
It was.
I think it was, as mentioned before, major damage limitations for them. And to end up 4th and 5th, very nearly getting George on the podium.
Yeah. It was a solid race from both of them. Hamilton looked like he was really struggling at the start.
Hamilton mentioned post-race that he had a different setup on to George. And if he'd have had George's setup, he would have fared a lot better.
Yeah, I do wonder if that's the whole teammate mentality thing again. Yeah. If they're going to start getting a bit antsy at each other.
I guess for the longest time, Hamilton's been, and he still is, number one. But now he's he is getting beat by his teammate.
Yeah, George is going to test him a bit
more and
now.
more often now. So yeah, see how he takes that, I guess. But I overall solid weekend.
Yeah, they started on alternate tyres, so Hamilton was on the hards.
Yeah,
Russell on the mediums, and then at the safety car they both pit and swapped over. And I think Hamilton was kind of pushing to try and get past Russell. Russell realised it.
And just pulled away.
And then just pulled away again. So, yeah, solid race from both of them. And, yeah, excited to see. I mean, that's only 2 races in. They might be able to claw some stuff back with this car. I mean, they're not, on Red Bull level, but it was a solid race. And they stayed in touch just with Alonso. Like, I think Alonso had pace in hand, but... Yeah, Mercedes with their quickest on track.
Is he about 5 seconds, 5 6 seconds at the end of the race from Alonso? So, I mean... It's not insurmountable.
I mean, I think Alonso was managing and Russell was pushing. But still, I mean, Russell pushed to the end and was fine. So fair play to them. It's a solid weekend from what's been a pretty poor kind of couple of weeks press-wise and coverage-wise. So I think they'll be happy with that.
There's just more and more stories coming out about the inner workings of Mercedes, isn't there? There's something going on.
Talk about something going on. Let's go to the next team on the list.
I'll let you take this.
Ferrari.
Jesus.
What happened? I literally don't understand what is going on with that team.
Long-suffering Ferrari fan, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, I think Leclerc did a great job to climb back up, and he was doing well considering he was on soft tyres.
Yeah.
He did quite well. Sainz didn't really do anything of note. Got overtaken by Stroll and then just kind of stayed there. There was a little bit of shuffling going on in the pit stops. Both Ferraris pit before the safety car, so they both lost out there.
That's just classic.
It's just
Ferrari luck, isn't it?
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but if the safety car hadn't turned out, maybe they'd have done all right. They both went to the hard tyres, and then they just didn't have any pace.
No.
They both sat. So it was Sainz first, then Leclerc, and they both sat behind the 2 Mercedes and just dropped back.
They kind of seemed to just settle in there, didn't they? And they weren't willing to risk too much to push, but they were fairly comfortable where they were sat.
Yeah, it just kind of the top teams just kind of split up, but it was a strange one to watch because Ferrari, obviously they've had issues. Obviously the car's not where they want to be, but they finished 35 seconds behind Red Bull. And last year, they were, Ferrari and Red Bull were fighting each other for the win.
They were on pace for the first, half-ish of the season.
So I don't really know what's happened with Ferrari there. They've gone from being the second fastest team, sometimes the fastest last year, to then dropping to being 4th fastest currently at this track. Not great.
No, not a good look, that one.
No.
Not a good look.
What's interesting is in qualifying, Leclerc, I mean, he's a qualifying monster anyway. Yeah. But he put in a solid lap.
Yeah,
he was only a 10th and a bit away from Perez, which, considering that Red Bull speed, that's impressive.
He's got fantastic one lap speed of a one lap, hasn't he?
But in the race, nothing, and they dropped like a stone. So it's a bit of a shame, and I don't know what's gonna.
He's obviously a solid. He's a top driver, but he seems to be. I don't know. He just seems. You make your own luck, I think, all the time, and he seems to bring on a lot of bad. Do you know what I mean? Over the course of a race, like I know last season it was a bit more prominent, but it just always seemed to be him.
It's just unfortunate. Yeah, I don't know how else to say it because he's a brilliant driver, but just always seems to get caught by things. I mean, even the little issue with the team telling him to push under the safety car, and then Hamilton comes out of the pits ahead of him, and he's like, "Guys, you should have told me about that a bit earlier." Stuff like that. It's just like you see it now, and you're like, "Oh, Ferrari doing a Ferrari thing."
Considering they have like a change of principle and stuff, you think maybe there'd be a bit of a reforming.
I think that'll happen later on. In fairness,
but just
2 races in, I think he's you're gonna. I think they were actually talking about it on Sky. You're probably gonna wait till the summer to see kind of his management have an effect.
Yeah.
But the car's not looking great, so we'll see kind of how they shape up in Australia. But 4th best. And
not where they want to be.
They'd have been behind both Astons and both Mercedes, so not great. Dropping down the teams a little bit more, then we get onto the pink French team of Alpine.
I love Alpine.
Yeah,
I just got a real soft spot for them. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Well, actually, my main soft spot's Pierre Gasly. I just I just like him.
Yeah.
He's a great driver. He seems like a nice guy. And he's someone I always just really want to see do well. So I'm glad he's in a car now, which
he's doing well. It looks like it's a better choice than the AlphaTauri. They had a bit of an anonymous race, didn't they? But
they did have they did. But looking at it after the race, I would say if you'd said 8th and 9th, they probably would have bit your hand off for it.
I think this is what we talked about, where that's sort of the best of the rest, really. Now you've got the big four.
And I do think they will slot in that comfortably all season. I think they will comfortably be... Oh, no, not comfortably. Yeah, no, I think they'll be comfortably in the points.
Yeah.
Most, if not all.
I think they look solid for 5th in the championship. So, but they've got to be, they've got to be kind of scratching their heads a little bit, looking further ahead, going, how can we catch them? Bit of an anonymous race, really. Just kind of ran their race, got past.
To say.
I think
again, they were just another team that kind of slotted in.
Yeah.
Just slotted into where they were quite comfortable. Knew they probably wouldn't catch Ferrari, but also they probably wouldn't be caught.
Yeah.
And we're quite comfortable with it.
Kind of chilled.
So again, that might just be another case of it's going to be a battle between the drivers. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so.
They're maybe not quick enough to catch the top teams, too fast to caught by the slower teams. So it's just a race between themselves, and Ocon won this one.
I kind of think that's what we're seeing a lot in the top 10 in general anyway. It's like the top 5 teams. I mean, well, apart from Aston, Stroll dropping out here. Maybe Stroll could have got Hamilton, maybe. Well, he already had Hamilton, but maybe he could have got Russell.
Just going to mention that to you.
But it's kind of 2 by 2 all the way down.
If he hadn't have had that DNF and he'd have picked the Mercedes, it would have been the Red Bulls, the Aston Martins, the Mercedes, the Ferraris and the Alpines, all back to back. What does that say? I'm not sure, but...
There'll be a lot of teammate fighting.
A lot of...
This season.
Yeah, the main race is against the guy next to me.
Yeah, I think... Then we kind of get into the sort of the lower half of the teams. We've
got to get messy now.
It gets a bit more interesting, really. We've got Haas, solid drive from Magnussen.
He's another one, I love seeing him do well. I think it's his smile.
Yeah, he just
makes me happy.
He's having fun, isn't he? Yeah. And he had a great battle with Tsunoda.
Yeah, poor Yuki. We'll get on to him, but he did, and it pretty much went down to the wire, that one, didn't it? Was it last couple of laps?
Yeah. He was attacking him for a long time.
So that was, as I said, we mentioned before, that's where the most interesting racing's happening down there at the minute. So, that was...
So we've got to enjoy it.
Yeah, But again, I'm also made up to see Haas doing okay. Again, just understand it. I just like him. But Haas, they still feel like they're the massive underdog, so it's nice to see them do well.
Yeah, they had a good showing. Hulkenberg wasn't that much further behind, and like you say, it's nice to see them do well, because I think the first race didn't look as great for them.
Plus, they had a rough couple of years or year and a bit, didn't they? So I'm glad
to grab a point. Good.
Well, he'd have hugged half the paddock for that.
He would. Hugged. AlphaTauri, Yuki, poor Yuki. I mean, I think that's probably my favourite radio message of the entire, ever, I think.
Yeah.
Oh! He pressed the button to say that. It's so good. I love him, but he was fighting so hard with a car that does not belong in the top 10.
No, it
at
doesn't.
all.
I was just going to say, I think that the Alpha Romeo it seems so just just there.
The Alfa Romeo or the AlphaTauri?
Sorry, the Alpha. I've got it in front of me. Sorry, the AlphaTauri. It's it just seems. No, the Alpha. No. Yeah,
Yuki and his Alpha.
Sorry,
you got the Alpha and you got the Alpha. No, Yuki's in the Alpha. Joe's in the Alpha.
Myself by just calling it just saying Alpha. Sorry.
Yeah. So
the AlphaTauri. Yeah, it just seems so
It's not a great car. It's not a great car, and I think
he's not going to do much.
He's doing a great job. He's finished 11th twice now, which solid job from him.
To be knocking on the door of 10th and to have 10th for.
Got to be so frustrating to lose it in the last couple of laps.
Yeah, I guess the good thing they'll take from it is it's maybe capable of scraping 10th every now and again, but I think that's the best they're going to be hoping for, really.
Yeah, but he's I guess what we've talked about a few times. When your car is kind of not great, you're looking at your teammate as your main competition, and Yuki's smoking De Vries at the moment, I think.
Does he get a little bit of a pass because he's a rookie?
He does to an extent. I think some people were talking about how he'd come in and he'd wipe the floor with Yuki and it'd be a lot tighter. And, we'll get onto the other rookie, Piastri, in a bit, but he's come in and done well. So, I don't know. Yeah, De Vries just didn't really look comfortable the whole weekend. I know he had engine issues. I think they replaced his engine, so he didn't get much running in FP3. He did a beautiful spin, like handbrake turn in qualifying at turn 1. I think the rear's just locked on him. But then he's just kind of, I don't know, just anonymous at the moment, and Yuki's bossing him. So it'll be interesting to see that one develop over the season, see if De Vries gets a bit more comfortable in the car and can start taking the fight to Yuki. But Yuki needs, for himself, it's his 3rd year in AlphaTauri. He needs to prove that he's solid, because they're not going to keep him forever.
Solid lead the team, but then also maybe he's the kind of driver who needs solid competition with him to push him.
Possibly.
Push him
quite
on.
Possibly, yeah. But a good effort.
Yeah,
it's not a great car.
He said he was knocking on the door at 10th, could have had it on another day. So yeah, it's, again, that's the best they're going to be.
It's okay, isn't it, I guess?
Best they're going to be hoping for.
So now that we've talked about Alpha, should we talk about Alpha? Or do you want to keep talking about Alpha before we go into Alpha?
I'd rather talk about Alpha.
Do you want to talk about Alpha?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Alfa Romeo.
Sick of looking stupid on this podcast.
Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, this time. What happened to Bottas?
I don't know.
I looked and I was convinced, he must have had some sort of issue with the car. He must have. Did he? I'm not sure he did.
He must have had damage.
Must have.
He must have had damage. Because I don't even know if he, he was a lap down.
Yeah.
But he was 30 seconds behind Norris.
So I was sat at home watching it with...
He just disappeared.
Yeah, and I'm supposed to be the expert in our house. And she goes, what happened to Bottas? And I was like, I don't know. I haven't got a clue.
I think he just got out and walked.
Did I miss something?
Yeah.
Is he pedaling it or what? I don't know. I'm still not sure what happened. I don't think it's come out. What happened? If anything happened, was he just really slow?
There must have been damage.
Yeah.
I think he came over the radio and said he was having sliding and the car wasn't feeling great. So I guess, there must have been something. There was some debris on the first lap from the McLaren incident, which he might have been involved, or he might have picked up. Yeah. Some floor damage or something like that.
A couple of wings on track, wasn't there?
Yeah. But no, it wasn't a good weekend for Bottas in general.
I mean, to be fair, it wasn't. But again, the Alfa Romeo is another one. I'm not sure it's got points in it, and if it has, it'll be
not regular points.
Definitely not regular points. So it'll be a bit of a disappointment for them, because I think they've got quite a decent driver lineup. I mean, Bottas is solid, great driver, and I think they've got a decent young driver in Zhou Guanyu as well. But
yeah, I was going to say, I want to fly the flag for Zhou there, because. Yeah. He had, I think it was one of the best overtakes of the race.
Yeah.
His move around the outside of Sargent into turn 1, beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful move, really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, the car's just not got points in it.
It's not got. They haven't got the power under them.
And then talking about the car not having it in them.
Christ.
In fairness, let's go on to McLaren.
Go on.
They might have points in the car. We didn't see any of it because they got tangled up in
They both get wing damage from
I think
turn 1 or something.
Yeah, I think it was Piastri came together with Gasly on the exit of 2, I think it was. And then I think the damage from Piastri's wing then hit Lando's wing. So I think Gasly just took out both McLarens.
That's so Ferrari.
Just beautiful. I would like to say before we get into the race is that qualifying wise, McLaren, Norris had a bit of a whoopsie and drove into the wall, for want of a better word, and couldn't really do anything from there. He was stuck in the garage getting repaired. But Piastri, solid job.
Kind of lived up to his hype there, hasn't he? A bit, because there was obviously a lot of hype surrounding him. A lot of teams were after him. Yeah, he's
200s off Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah,
in qualified 8th.
Again, drove the backside off that one. Obviously, couldn't keep hold of it.
Yeah.
Naturally.
It's seriously impressive, though. It kind of feels like it's flown under the radar a little bit, especially because his race was ruined in the first lap. Both of those were. But he qualified 8th.
Yeah, solid. I think the McLaren, if they can stay away from the trouble, I think it probably has got points in them. Again, not sure consistently, though.
It's slow in the straights.
Plus I think there's teams above them where they're sort of nailed on for points. So the window is probably only 9th and 10th.
Yeah, it's going to be a big old dogfight. Yeah. I guess, like a lot of them, you're waiting for crazy races to try and jump up into the points, aren't you?
I just feel like McLaren should be better than that, though. They shouldn't have to rely on mad stuff to happen.
You'd hope.
To be in the points. They feel like a team that should... They just feel like a team that shouldn't be squandered and...
No.
Like, these, like... I know...
Well, they're last in the Constructors now, aren't they?
Yeah, and that's just not... how?
After 2 races, which is not good.
How has that happened when they've got what I think is like one of the better drivers on the grid in Lando Norris? I think he's a superb driver. And supposedly one of the best rookies has been in God knows how long. As I said, there was a dogfight and people that wanted his signature. Yeah, maybe just give them the car.
Yeah, yeah, maybe make the car
give them a
quicker.
decent car because we've touched on this before, so we're not going to go too much into it. Lando ain't going to stay there forever with that car.
Yeah,
he's too good. I think he's too good of a driver to be that.
I think we should go consult. Like, at McLaren, if you're watching this, we've got some advice for you. Just make the car quicker. In fairness to
make
McLaren,
the wheels go round faster.
Yeah.
Dead easy.
And in the corners, go quicker through them.
Turn.
Yeah. And on the straights, go quicker as well.
Stay straight on the straights.
Yeah.
Straight
but
line.
go quicker on them.
Yeah.
If you can do that,
just a pedal on the floor.
press it harder.
Press it harder.
Yeah.
And press the brakes less.
So yeah, McLaren, if you want the advice, we're here. You know our number. Get in touch with us.
We've played the F1 game for years now. we know what this is about.
Have your people reach out to our people, and we'll get something going. In all fairness to McLaren, it is fun to joke on them because it hides the pain of wanting to see them do better.
It's not like against them.
No,
I'd love to see them do well.
But they could have actually had a decent race. In fairness to them, I think the issue at the start, both of them getting wing damage and then both of them having to pit and replace the wing, they were kind of screwed from then on. There's not really much that they could do.
I'm not sure Lando was ever going to fight back to points.
No,
from last on the grid or 19th on the grid. Did he start last?
He was near the back.
He was near the back anyway. I don't think he was ever going to fight back for points. But I mean, he probably could have done a bit better than where he finished.
Yeah, it's just it was a shame because as soon as that happened, the race is over, and then they're just kind of trying to make anything that they can
finish
out of it. Yeah, essentially. And top job for Piastri for making a set of hard tyres go the entire Grand Prix, pretty much, which is fair play.
Pip and Sargent as well.
Yeah, and then there was a good battle between the two McLarens and Sargent at the end, which was very entertaining to watch.
Yeah, which does lead us nicely on to Williams.
Yeah.
And I would like to start with Sargent because I think he's been...
Top job.
Top job from him. I think for the first 2 races, I think he's been solid.
He got very unlucky in qualifying. I think he put a wheel slightly over... There's like an advertising strip on the pit straight, and he put a wheel over that and immediately disallowed his lap, which is a real shame because I think he looked solid for Q2 potentially.
Yeah. I think he's looked the most solid out of all the rookies.
He looks good, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think he's considering what he's driving as well. I think he looks really good.
He had a decent race. I mean, it's a shame. He finished 16th, which is it's not where he qualified. He climbed up a little bit, but maybe there was a bit more in it. It was a shame. It looked like the tyres dropped off towards the end and he just couldn't hold on. Had a good battle with the McLarens. But yeah, solid drive. Solid race.
Are Williams the bottom of the list for you?
Sometimes. I don't know. It depends. It depends. It all depends on the race.
Depends what side of the bed you wake up on.
Yeah. It looks... Sometimes they look really quick. And then sometimes they don't. So...
Yeah.
Again, that is my expert technical analysis of that.
Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
Sometimes they're bad. They're definitely in the lower half of the teams, but
I think they're probably in the lower half of the lower half.
yeah, they're definitely towards the back. But I do think, Sargent held on very well against both McLarens for a while.
For as long as he possibly could, yeah.
So
Which I don't know whether is making him look good or making the McLarens look really poo. I don't know who that says more about, really, but he did what he did.
yeah,
You can only race what's in front of you, I guess. And he did it quite well. When I said he just got pipped at the end there, but...
And then poor old Albon. Albon had he looked like he was having a solid race. I haven't actually got any notes here about what position it was he retired from, but he was sort of...
I haven't myself.
I think he was around the 13, 14, 15 mark, maybe higher. And he was driving really well. Real shame for him that the brakes just let go and then he had to kind of coast around for a while, pull in and retire. But
see when he pulled into the pits and they were all like standing out the way.
Yeah. Do not run over us. Yeah, that's it. I mean, of all the circuits for your brakes to go on, Jeddah is terrifying.
Oh my God, I know.
I was genuinely wondering whether it would be a safety car. Luckily, he managed to get back around in time. But
so the coasted it back around.
Yeah, but having a car going that slow around with cars at racing speed, you would be terrified.
Yeah.
I'm sure he was probably on the radio asking where everyone was. But yeah, unfortunate for Albon. Williams, do you know, considering that they're in the lower end, they didn't look that bad. And I think it looks like all the kind of maybe the lower 3-4 teams, each of the drivers in those teams will get good performances. The cars will suit different circuits. It doesn't look like we've got a solid kind of nailed on back marker.
Yeah, I was going to say, it doesn't seem like I do think Williams and maybe are towards the back of the back half, as we've just said. But I think the fight for like 9th and 10th is quite even between everyone down there.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's you wouldn't look at a team and you go, they're never getting points. Just no chance.
That's it. It looks like there's potential for everyone.
They can all fight for that 8th, 9th, 10th area. Yeah. So yeah, but as we've said before, that's where the most exciting racing is at the minute, because the top half's quite boring, really.
Yeah. So it's going to be that's going to be a dogfight to try and for them, because one good result for one of those teams and it'll leapfrog them over everyone. So
a couple of DNFs for the big ones, and it just opens it wide up, doesn't it?
It does, but unfortunately, it's it's down the bottom end, and we'd love to see it really at the top. But that's the state of the grid so far. I guess that's the state of the race. There is one more point. We asked for you guys for your opinions and your thoughts on the race, and we got a load of them, and we're going to sort of jump into them now really quickly. There's one final thing that I wanted to play for you just before, because it stood out to me, and I thought it was worth a little bit of
I think I know what you're going to do.
Of a laugh here, yeah. So this is the Saudi Arabian national anthem.
Yeah, this is what I was expecting.
It's very nice. Very nice anthem.
Just not played very well.
Yeah, so this is the anthem that they played at the race. Love all the drivers trying not to laugh at each other.
Someone is getting shouted at for this.
And then they turn around and they're like, yeah, that was it.
It kind of sounds like a school orchestra who've just learned their very first song performing it at
Yeah.
And everyone goes, oh, that was so good. Well done. That was really
I don't know whether all of them were playing the same anthem.
I'm not sure whether all of them were playing. No.
It was a spectacle. I did, because I listened to it and I was like, this can't be the actual anthem, surely. And then I looked online and I was like, oh, there is a nice recorded version of it. Maybe they just should have mined.
Yeah, or maybe just get musicians that can.
Oh yeah, find musicians
that can play. Yeah.
I just wanted to highlight that because I thought amused me slightly.
Yeah. Shall we have a super quick break and then come back with...
We'll come back with part 2.
Some part 2 and
episode.
questions and thoughts from you guys.
We'll be back.
We will.
And we're back. That was a great
We're
break.
back. Got some sustenance.
In this part of the episode, we thought it would be cool to go through the messages that you guys sent, your takes, basically, on the race. Thanks to everyone who sent them in.
Yeah, really appreciated.
We got a lot more than we were expecting.
To be
not going to lie.
We were expecting about 1.
Yeah, and it was going to be me.
Yeah, it was going to be my mum.
But we actually got quite a lot. So we're going to try and go through them sort of briefly. But
don't get too offended if we
sort of skip through quite quick.
We kind of feel like we're quite pushed for time, and there was so many. This is only like a select few. We got more than this,
and we're going to butcher people's names as well. Apologies, but we'll try and chuck them up on screen.
Yeah, we're commoners.
So we're not very good at it. Yeah. But we're going to try and do this for each race. So I guess let's jump into the first ones. We've got 3 kind of comments here.
Yep.
We've got Gustav Upshift 1 and Till TRL all kind of making comments on the different kind of teams in the lower half of the grid. Gustav says Logan Sargent and Zhou Guanyu are both very underrated.
I think we touched on that.
And I think
we kind of covered that.
We're with you, Gustav.
Yeah, we 100% agree. Logan Sargent, definitely.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be a phenomenal driver.
And that move from Zhou, it was beautiful. Upshift 1, Albon would have scored points.
Again, I think you kind of touched on that, didn't you? Well, not necessarily that he was touching points, but he was definitely up there.
I do. We'll have to check. But I think definitely he might have actually been ahead of Magnussen. And if he was, then points would have been on the table. So it's a great call. He obviously got points last time out, and the Williams is looking good in his hands. So and Sargent. So yeah, it's a good shout, mate. It's a good shout. Maybe next time.
Yeah, I definitely don't disagree with that.
And then we've got TRL saying Gasly would have been faster than Ocon. Maybe he could have got P7 if he had the clean air. I'll hand on heart here. I didn't really watch the Alpines too much. I think probably they kind of just settled in at some point and kind of finished the race in formation.
Yeah, we kind of said that, didn't we? We kind of said that they weren't fast enough to catch the people in front and too fast to be caught. To take from that, I agree, if that's what you're saying, that Gasly's a better driver.
It'll be interesting to see those two battle.
I think he is a faster driver than Ocon. Whether he would have been in that race is...
There was a moment, wasn't it? I mean, Ocon's got a reputation for fighting his teammates very hard.
Yes.
Very hard.
Yes.
And there was
people, doesn't he?
there was a small moment in that race where they were next to each other, and I was like, oh, this is going to end badly.
This is going to end in a wall.
And then they managed to sort themselves out. Maybe if he'd got the clean air, he could have jumped ahead. Equally, maybe Ocon just had the pace over him.
But just on your last thing, he could have gotten P7. I think P7 and P8 will be pretty much tied up by Alpine for the majority of the season.
Yeah.
And it'll be one of them too. And I agree that it will be Gasly more often than not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or could it be the Papaya team? Because we've got 2 comments here from Stefan and a William Sid. Sorry if I've read that wrong. Both, I think McLaren fans, Stefan's said, I'm going to end up depressed being a McLaren fan for this whole season. Poor old Stefan.
Yeah,
I'm with you, mate.
That's not a great...
Your mate here.
That's not a great... Yeah, not a great one to be... Not a great camp to be in, that is it.
How are you coping? Because you're quite a McLaren fan and you're a Lando fan.
Yeah, so I do like McLaren and I do like Lando as well. Yeah, it's not great. I'd love to see them. As I touched on earlier in the podcast, they're too big of a team for me and too good of a team to be festering down there in the doldrums of the constructors and the whatever. But yeah. I mean,
Hopefully we see some better results soon. But yeah,
I don't know if it's coming.
Well,
They'd have to make serious improvements, but they've certainly got the drivers who can drive the car. It's obviously just about them giving them the car.
Hopefully the battle between Norris and Piastri kind of cheered you up a little bit, Stefan, because that was fun.
Who did you want to win that one? That's an interesting one. The rookie or the famous Lando? The person who's got to give them that car, Zach Brown. And I believe Sid says Zach Brown is in trouble. You might be right.
I don't know how. Yeah, so the way McLaren structure their team is a bit weird because Zach Brown isn't the principal.
Yeah, he's not the team principal. Yeah.
He's CEO.
Yeah.
But definitely some words are going on at McLaren somewhere.
Yeah. Maybe the actual team principal's in trouble, and Zach Brown's going to put him in trouble.
Someone we don't know who.
Some guy.
I don't know if anyone knows who he is. No, I think serious words are going to be.
Yeah, if they don't improve, if they certainly don't look like improving, because I think the longer this goes on, we've touched on it, it's going to crumble around them. Because I think they will lose Lando as soon as the top seat comes available. If McLaren is still in this area of just nothingness, and then it's like the house of cards falling down, isn't it? One thing goes and then the next thing goes. Just to touch on this though, I do think there's going to be one very happy person about all this, and I think that man is Daniel Ricciardo. I think he's going to be looking at that going, maybe I wasn't so much the problem.
See, I find that interesting because I thought similar, and then I realised that Piastri was battling with Norris. He's definitely not missed out on a great car. No. But seeing the two McLarens battling each other was quite new. We haven't seen that in a few years, really.
Lando's so used to being well in front, isn't he?
Yeah, so I don't know, actually. I don't know how...
I guess it's too early to say on them two how that's going to go, who will end up being the driver who performs more often. I would put the money on Lando, and maybe he's just had a bit of a bad race, or I don't know.
Clearly wasn't working, was it?
Something wasn't working. I think over the course of the season, I think the cream rises to the top, doesn't it? I think
it definitely does.
I think that is Lando. But I mean, if as half of the grid were after this Piastri, and so I think people aren't surprised with how he's battling Lando and doing quite well. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. They just need to give him
as you say, they've got great drivers. Just need a good car. So yes, I think words are going to be being had, and we'll see kind of if something comes of that later on. They've got updates coming apparently. So is everyone now.
So is everyone. Yeah.
We've then got some messages talking about the fight a little bit higher up, because we all know Red Bull are going to win the championships. So Mitchell Drysdale.
Is anyone who doesn't?
Yeah. And are you okay? Mitchell Drysdale's written in here saying the battle for second in the constructors is well and truly on, and I'm 100% with you, mate. It is
well and truly on, because Aston Martin and Mercedes are both sitting pretty on 38, and Ferrari are just behind on 26.
And the development's going to be huge.
That is anyone's game, so that is one of the more exciting aspects of what's going on this season. Who do you think's going to get it?
I
know you've already made the prediction, but we can't remember what we said.
Yeah, that would require us to remember what we wrote down. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think Aston look good now, and I think Aston have the most wind tunnel time, and they've got decent resources. Part of me just is struggling to accept the fact that Mercedes and Ferrari have dropped behind them.
Yeah,
and I think in my head I'm like, well, they'll jump back up soon.
Well, Mercedes is still on par with them.
Yeah, Mercedes are doing well, but in fairness, it was only because Stroll retired.
Yeah, that's very true.
Potentially, fifth place or something. So that would have been a big old. But I honestly don't know, and I think I do think that that's what is going to make this season fun. Is kind of looking at those teams battling for second.
Just take first out of
it. Yeah, and try to kind of work out. We've got a couple of other messages here from mjohns09 saying Aston's the second best team on the grid, and I'm with you there currently. They're looking very solid, and all they need really is for Stroll to make it. I mean, in fairness, he's recovering with his wrists, but he needs to make a little step up to just be right behind Alonso.
He's got a tough job there competing with Alonso.
He has.
Stroll is as he's proven this season so far. All right, he's got a good car, but he's a good driver, especially coming off the back of that injury, like you've just said. But then competing with Alonso as well is going to be tough.
He's going to make the difference, though. If Aston are going to try and go gun for second, Stroll's going to make the difference.
Interestingly, that's exactly what, just really quick, was going to come on in this fight for second, like we were talking. If I had to say now, again, I'm not sure what I said at the start of the season, I think I would go with Mercedes.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I think the pairing of Lewis and George will be just a bit more consistent than the pairing of the Aston Martin guys. So that's what I'd say on that one.
Yeah, no, it's all going to, like, both drivers are going to have to pull all of their weight in this. Obviously, like, Stroll's been doing a decent job, and he has sort of returned injured.
Yeah.
So
I think we'd have knew more if he didn't.
If he didn't have the injury, and yeah, if he'd have actually finished the race, we'd have seen kind of where he ended up. But yeah, I do think you're right. Second best team on the grid currently. Whether it'll shift around depending on the track, who knows? It's tight. And then Biebs Lima. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. Mercedes in front of Ferrari, and then some shocked faces. Yeah, I don't know how that happened.
We touched on that, didn't we? At the very beginning of the podcast, saying maybe it's not as bad as overall as Mercedes are making it out to be. To everyone else, it seems to be like the whole thing's imploding to Mercedes, but to everyone else looking in, it's kind of like, well, it's not that bad. You're not like you haven't.
You're not Ferrari.
Yeah, you're not McLaren. Do you know what I mean? You haven't like completely fell off. You just haven't, which no one has, made a car as good as that Red Bull.
Yeah.
But you're still well in the fight for second.
Yeah.
In the constructors, and
Yeah.
I think that's fine.
It's worrying for Ferrari, isn't it?
It is very worrying for Ferrari.
Yeah, so I guess the takes on the sort of the top, well, 2, 3, second, third, and fourth positions in the championship teams wise. That second team, that Aston Martin team, I don't know if you noticed, Josh, because it kind of slipped under the radar for a lot of people, but Alonso picked up a penalty he actually picked up 2 in this race, and
Did he?
yeah, it wasn't really discussed. So some people have sent messages talking about it, but
Go on, teach me.
he got a penalty. So if we rewind all the way back to the start of the race, he started a little bit left of the grid.
Okay.
Of his grid slot. So he got a 5-second time penalty.
Right.
Same as Ocon. And then same as Ocon, he came in to sort of serve the time penalty, and then not same as Ocon. He came in to serve the time penalty. Yeah. All the mechanics kind of hovered over the car, waited for 5 seconds, then they serviced the car and he came back out again. All good.
Did that as well.
They did. They literally just hang. And then the whole race just carried on. I think that was about lap
what was
15
the problem?
or something. The problem was, at the very end of the race, Mercedes came over the radio to George, who was running about 4 seconds behind Alonso, and said, just stay with him because we think he's going to get a penalty here.
What for?
Well, no one knew.
No.
And then the race
Still
finished.
don't.
Then the race finished. And then Alonso went up on the podium and celebrated his 100th podium.
Why wouldn't he?
And then, after all that, they just announced that actually Alonso got a time penalty because one of the mechanics, the jacks that lift up the back of the car, them
ones,
had touched the car.
Oh, gee.
Hadn't lifted it, had just put the jack into position. So they went,
Was it touching the car?
It touched the car.
Oh, well.
So about 40 odd minutes after the pit stop had happened,
would be weird?
They gave him a penalty.
Do you know what would be weird what happened after that 40 minutes? If George then was
Also,
up to third, and then he did the podiums interviews as being, that would be weird.
It would have been really strange. And then if he like was pictured with the trophy
whilst doing the interview, got a text or something.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I'm not.
Actually.
That
So
would be weird.
essentially what happened is George and Fernando just played a game of catch with the third place trophy, because, I mean, we can't like dress this up. What an absolute balls up from the FIA to wait for essentially 2/3 of the race to then suddenly slap Alonso with a 10-second penalty when he'd finished third, drop him down after the podium celebrations, drop him down to fourth. Congrats, George, you're now on the podium. Well done. And then Aston Martin went, hey, hang on.
Psych.
This isn't right.
Yeah.
And then they provided the stewards with loads of evidence of people doing this before and basically said, look, the jack touched the car. It's not working on the car.
Yeah.
That's totally fine. And then the stewards went, yeah, you're right. And then Alonso went back on the podium again, which happened like about 5 hours after the race, something like that.
Well, I was in bed.
Yeah.
That's how much later when I got the little notification saying, actually, no, Alonso's in third now. Oh.
What an awful way to do penalties. And we've got some, obviously, guys, you've written in to kind of let us know what your thoughts were here. W. Corrington says, very disappointed in the FIA for their lack of action on Alonso's penalty during the race, because Alonso could have pushed to get the 10-second gap to 10-second gap to Russell, and Hamilton could have potentially pushed to try and get fourth position. And then clearly you also got the notification that we all got, because then we got another message saying, oh my God, you can now mention Alonso's back in P3.
Well, I think we've covered both of those things, but just the start of your point during
totally
the race,
agree.
Yeah, it's got to happen.
Totally agree. Alistair Deman, you've said Alonso's penalty was criminal. They need to clarify the rules. They definitely do, because that's where it all came from, this sort of misunderstanding of what is working on the car.
So once they've appealed now and they've sort of cleared the muddied waters that actually you can touch the car, you just can't actually do anything on the car. I think that surely now sets that's the rule, which is mad that it's come in the way it has. Surely them rules should be very clear. You can touch the car, just don't do anything on it. But obviously there was some people in both the FIA and some of the teams who didn't know that rule.
Yeah.
They obviously thought they just couldn't touch the car at all, and sort of, as you just
actually just line the jack up. Totally agree, though, that these kind of things are going to cause so many issues for the sport, because you can't have the race. I mean, I understand it if it had happened on like the last lap or something, fair enough. But it literally happened like a third of the way into the race. You had half an hour of basically nothing happening because it wasn't the most exciting race in the world, to then, let the podium happen, let Alonso celebrate his 100th podium, and then be like, oh, by the way, actually, see, right at the start of the race, they messed up something to do with the pit stops, 5-second penalty or 10-second penalty. Alonso, you're off the podium. George, well done. Like, it just looks so bad. And if you're new to Formula One, you're going to be like watching the podiums going, well, is that the actual podium? Yeah. It does. And I will admit, I kind of was watching the podium going, is he going to keep this? Is this legit? Yeah. It's such an awful way to handle it. Just handle it during the race. Yeah. It clearly didn't take them that long to look at it. Just handle it during the race.
But the scary thing is, it must have took them that long.
I think what actually happened is Mercedes protested it. And I think they've put the protest in late. But still, like, it's just watch the pit stops. When anyone is serving a penalty, they need to just watch that the penalty's been served correctly. And if it hasn't, penalise them immediately. Yeah. Don't penalise them after the race is finished. When, because Alonso, as Corrington said here, Alonso could have pushed. If he'd have known straight after the pit stop, he could have pushed to get a 10-second gap. He wasn't pushing, he was managing his tyres.
And then George's engineers wouldn't be coming over the radio going, we think he might get a penalty, so maybe just try and push, just in case.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like...
just so badly handled. So sort yourselves out, FIA, because stuff like that...
It's so basic as well.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not as if something mad has happened, and it's like, how do we work this one out? This has never happened before. It's such a basic...
But it just makes the sport look so bad.
Because it's so basic.
Yeah, like if Russell had actually got that podium, that's his first podium of the year, and he's not on it. There's no photos of him on it. And it does happen occasionally, but come on, when you've got that much time, sort it.
It's a massive thing for Alonso getting his 100th.
Yeah, and
everyone's celebrating that, and then it's like, oh no, actually...
You've not got it.
Oh, no, actually, now you've got your 101st. Well done, you're back on the podium.
Yeah.
It's like, geez.
2. Barney Hun has also sent us a message saying, Alonso, 100th podium, GOAT.
It's 101st now.
Yeah, he's calling it. I don't know whether he technically counts as 2. Yeah, agree.
I know it doesn't, but it should.
It's insane. 100 podiums is nuts.
Yeah.
And I think that count's going to go up a lot this year. So
yeah, will do.
Excited. Well, unless he gets penalties after them and then gets taken back off them again. But we'll see. Yeah, he is a beast. And then Tommy Lyon has also sent a message saying Alonso in his Aston Martin having the best midlife crisis ever.
He's loving it, isn't he?
He is so happy. I think we mentioned it before. His little radio messages. He's just beaming everywhere. I love how he's being cheeky. I love after the race when they're like, "Oh, are you bothered that you've been penalised?" And he's like, "Well, no, because I got to go on the podium and I got to dance and celebrate with the team
Them
and I got to spread." Yeah,
so it happens.
The sponsors are happy. So yeah, he's having a great time, and I'm all here for it.
Oh yeah, I like to see him do well.
Onwards then from the Alonso penalty controversy, because we could talk about that forever, and I think everyone will be. I think that'll be one of the biggest talking points for the next couple of weeks. Maybe we'll revisit it next week. But moving on really quickly from there, we've also then got to look at the battle for the lead. And we got a couple of messages about that. Martin Coates said, "I was glad they didn't force a team order on Checo to give the win to Max."
Yeah, I mean, I think that would have been so bang on.
That would have been brutal.
Yeah.
You can't do that 2 races into the season.
No. Yeah, that would have, especially when, as I said, at this point, they're both fighting for it.
Yeah.
That would have been really... And then it sort of sets a bad precedent then for the rest of the season because, you know, what's at the start of the season, if you're sort of penalising Checo like that, it's like, oh yeah, he's actually made his way from 15th to 2nd now, so you better move over and get him first.
Yeah, like, they can't. I think with a car as dominant,
to keep the harmony.
Yeah, with a car as dominant as what they've got, there shouldn't really be any team orders this year. Well, they're not fighting anyone else
at this stage, though. It's like it's only beneficial to Red Bull to just let them go for it.
But if you think about it, for the entire season, it's going to be Max versus Checo unless someone else turns up with an insane update. So if it is Max versus Checo, you've just got to let them fight
for the whole season though, or until Max pulls away. Purely because like, what's the point in like jeopardising that? If I don't know if
it's for wins, maybe.
Yeah, if he has like a couple of DNFs and Max goes on to win and he's like so many points ahead, then you've kind of got to say, right, well, maybe.
I don't know. I think if say like a Ferrari's leading and Checo's second and Max is up behind him, then yeah, because you let Max try and go for the win if Checo's stuck. But I think if it's Red Bull 1-2, it makes no sense to swap the cars at this point because they're not fighting anyone else. They've probably got the championship sewn up. The car is so quick. Let them fight.
Yeah, I guess so.
Or tell them to hold position if you must. But don't let someone pass because that's just like what's the benefit?
But then, as Jim Whitehouse says,
Perez is boring. Jim, yeah. I mean, I get where he's coming from here. I do, because I think what happens here is, and I'll sort of jump off to one side a little bit here, is when you had Mercedes dominating and you had Hamilton and Rosberg, they kind of went toe to toe with each other. Rosberg wasn't as good as Hamilton, but they were pushing each other, and it was a bit of and Rosberg eventually won a championship. Yeah. And then Bottas came in, and I love Bottas, but he didn't challenge Hamilton at all.
He was very, I'm number 2, this is my place.
Well, he didn't want to be.
Well, yeah, he wasn't, but
he was put in that. Yeah, he had to be. And I think Perez is in the same boat. Yeah. And that kind of, you know, I like the guy, but it doesn't really bode well for a championship because he is essentially second to Max.
He's not that boring off track, though, is he?
No.
You know?
No. What
happened at Monaco last year? We'll leave that one there.
But no, I do see, like, I hope that Perez can take the fight to Max and we can actually get a fight, because otherwise, when you've got to rule Red Bull out to make the season exciting, it makes it a little bit of a, I don't know, it's not as great. And maybe we have been spoiled over the last few years, but yeah, I hope Perez can take it to Verstappen. Do I think he can? No.
But
that kind of, you know, that idea of hoping that he can, because otherwise the season's going to be boring. That kind of leads us on to the last sort of group of messages that we got from you guys, and we got quite a few of them. Feeling a little bit, I guess, like disenfranchised with the sport because of how far ahead Red Bull are.
Yeah.
And they are. Estuardo says, seems like another boring year for Formula One. All the new regulations for nothing. Tyler says, every race will be boring unless Red Bull have reliability issues. Andy Gilmore says, F1 is dead. Chill, Andy. We hope you're all right, but yeah, I'm with you on that. And Danort17 says, I'm tired of Formula One. I've been watching every race for 15 years now, and the actual racing has only become a minor part. And I think what everyone's kind of getting at here is that when you have one team dominating in the way that Red Bull are looking like they are, second a lot quicker than everyone else, and then you have a driver who is kind of going to sort of dominate his teammate in the way that Max will. Does it take it definitely takes the sting out of the race, doesn't it?
It does. However, as I mentioned, that's not Red Bull's fault.
No.
That's the rest of the grid's fault for not challenging.
But as a sport, it kind of kills the entertainment a bit, doesn't it?
In all top flight level sport, this happens. It's like over in football, you got Man City, you've got an unlimited budget, can buy anyone you want and win everything. Well, but it happens. So like the bookies for some of the seasons, like in the last couple of seasons, we're running Premier League winners if Man City win it. So it's like a lot of
that's
like,
what we're going to end up with here, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of top level sport. It somehow sometimes just goes this way, and it is boring. But it's down to the rest of the teams to make it not boring. It's not down to Red Bull to make their car a little bit more shit. So,
just to make it exciting.
Line this back 50% and we make it exciting.
I think if we bring in a rule that both Red Bulls have to start off in the pit lane every single race,
it wouldn't make a difference.
Could make it more fun.
It wouldn't make a difference.
No, they'd still win everything. But yeah, I mean,
start them a lap behind, and they did. Maybe they'd only win by 10 seconds.
Yeah, I'll be 100% honest here. I feel like I've been watching F1 for 12 years, maybe 11 years, and I'm not excited for Australia. Because I feel like obviously we know what's...
Tune into that podcast.
Yeah, I know. And I shouldn't really say that, but I'm not. And I hope that some things come out that make it more exciting. And I will obviously tune in and watch it because I'm addicted to this sport.
We'd have nothing to talk about.
We'd just be stuck otherwise. But I think it's the first race in a very, very long time that I'm like I obviously want to see, certain drivers and certain teams do well, but there's no excitement in the championship for me, because what I feel like is going to happen in Australia, barring any kind of crazy reliability things, is Max will put it on pole, drive away, Perez will be second, drive away, and then some people will fight for third. But with the way that the teams are kind of, the gaps are working between the teams at the moment, it wasn't like in this race we saw Red Bull and Mercedes and Ferrari. Red Bull were off, but it wasn't like we saw Aston, Mercedes and Ferrari fighting each other, or even like they just kind of swept past each other, got into their positions, and then just stayed there. And I don't really know where you go from that if races become that.
Yeah,
for the majority.
See, it's not a great, as we've said, it's not a good advert, and for the because I used to be like this. So I used to have a very strange relationship with Formula One, in the sense that from an outsider looking in, it was, it doesn't matter anyway, because whoever's in the fastest car will win. And I think now for people who aren't into the sport looking at it, will go, well, it just reaffirms that point.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter, because look, Max started from 15th and he still nearly won the race. It's like, what is the point of that? And I get it, but then I started sort of looking at Formula One as maybe just take the drivers out of it. It's more like a team sport. Obviously, it all clicks into one, and they give him a good car. He drives it dead well, and he wins. But yeah, it's not a good advert. But as I said, that's not.
It's not the team's
It's
fault.
not the team. Well, it's not Red Bull's fault.
They've just done a solid job. But yeah, it does.
Everyone else is the crap one.
Yeah, but it does, like, you know, I guess like a lot of things. Maybe we've been spoiled the past couple of years as well. 2021 was insane. Last year was pretty good up until sort of the second half. Red Bull dominated it, but you had teams sort of fighting for wins.
But you know, going back a few years when Mercedes had their 6, 7, 8 years period of domination, were these things being brought up then?
Yeah, there was definitely the sort of the issue of Mercedes dominance and stuff. But
why?
I don't think. I mean, they were untouchable in sort of 2014, maybe 15 and 16. They were seconds a lap quicker than everyone else. There's a very famous example of in the Bahrain Grand Prix, Rosberg and Hamilton were fighting each other. So they were battling. They should have been losing time. They were first and second. And they were gapping the cars behind them by like multiple seconds. So yeah, like we're almost back to that.
Yeah,
and we haven't seen that for a while. I think Mercedes won a lot of championships. Hamilton won a lot of races, but it felt closer. This feels inevitable. This feels like a Red Bull is going to be on the top, regardless.
I only asked that question because on the pit of misery that is social media, it seems to be a lot of the people saying things like this conversation we're having, like the sport, it's boring, and it's all these things because it's just inevitable. It seems to be a lot of that is from Hamilton, Mercedes fans, who I imagine quite enjoyed it.
Maybe,
when it was, and do you know what I mean? I think there's got to be like people like us who, okay, yeah, I do support Red Bull. However, I've said loads of times that I would love to see another team do well to challenge.
Yeah, no one likes dominance, I think. I mean, unless you're a massive fan of the driver, but if it's basically saying, like, are you going to sit down and watch Max win the race today? Or are you going to sit down and watch Lewis win the race today? Or are you going to sit down and watch Schumacher win the race today? Like,
it seems to be like
kills it a bit.
I'd love to know what the crossover is between people who are just really upset Mercedes fans and are now saying, oh, it's boring now because Max just dominates. Were they saying that when Mercedes were? And then, like, the other side, you've got people who just want to see good racing. I think there's probably a big major crossover in that. But the point does still stand. I would like Red Bull to win every race, but I'd like them to win every race. I'd like it to be hard fought.
Yeah.
I'd like every race to be like the Lewis versus Max year.
Yeah.
Because
it's good for the sport.
Who wouldn't want that?
Yeah.
It's like when I watch a football team in a final, to see them win 5-0, it's boring. I'd rather my team won like 5-4, score the last minute winner. Because while you're in it at the moment, it's like, oh my god, this is.
Yeah.
But at the end of it, the elation is better.
Yeah.
Because you're 1-0 up, you're 2-0 up, you're 3.
Exactly. You're just like, and I think these messages, that's clearly what you guys are feeling as well.
Yeah.
And you know, I think a lot of people probably are. I guess, like, how would you respond to that? How would you sort of tell yourself? I think for me, one thing is, even in the sort of the Mercedes dominance years that we had, which, you know, I mean, I think there were seasons where Mercedes won all but 3 races, and you know, a couple of them were just Mercedes mistakes, is that hopefully we will still have good races, even if the championship's sewn up. Hopefully there'll still be good races in there. There'll be races where weather plays into effect. There'll be races where...
I don't know, Max is pretty good in the wet.
Yeah, true. But there'll be races where, like, reliability comes back. Hopefully just the team sort of managed to close up a little bit.
I wouldn't try and lose too much heart in it until the first round of upgrade packages have come in, and then see where we are. Because you might find that the upgrade packages come in and Red Bull are even further ahead and it gets worse. But you might also find that the gap's closed a bit. And while I don't think they're going to close the full gap, it might be enough of the gap to make it
exciting,
a little bit exciting.
Yeah. And if not, we'll do our best to make the recaps exciting.
Christ. Well, not with you over there. Go on, really
misery guts.
Misery guts. Is
anyone else feeling the same? Genuinely, like, let us know. I need to sit down and have a word with myself, and cheer myself up and sort of make myself a little bit more excited. But yeah, I think, you know, we've had a couple of messages. Let us know if you're sort of in that boat as well, and if you're not, let us know why and how we can get there.
You're probably a Red Bull fan.
So, I think that's a pod. I think we'll leave that there. Thank you everyone for sending in your messages.
Yeah, keep that coming.
Keep that going. Yeah, we'll keep putting stuff up.
The link to like maybe our email or whatever, so you can.
Yeah, if you want to send longer messages to us, we'd love to discuss them. Just shoot us an email. We'll stick it up on screen. I know we've put some stuff up on Instagram, but it kind of limits how much you can send. Yeah, shoot us an email. Send us a little message on Instagram or TikTok or whatever. Hope you're enjoying the pod. And until next time, that's it. Yeah, we'll catch you for the cool down lap, and we'll probably dive into some of these issues in a bit more detail next week. But until then, see ya.
Thank you.